In this video, I'm speaking with Andrew Shee, CTO at Kolena, about why AI agent evaluation goes beyond accuracy. We'll explore how businesses can redefine trust, ensure ethical outcomes, and address key challenges in AI evaluation. We'll also discuss emerging metrics, real-world use cases, and best practices for testing AI to drive long-term value. How should business leaders redefine trust in AI performance beyond just accuracy metrics?
I think there's a few things at play here. Like one, accuracy and I think correctness in general is um, key for AI performance. And I honestly think that with AI agents, you kind of have a higher level of responsibility for both. Like agents have been more powerful than kind of just plain usage of LLMs, and so as a result, like they do have a greater impact. And the way that people interface with them is also greater. And like I'm thinking like a lot of kind of the direction for AI agents is like conversational as well. And so how does user like what's the user experience like with interfacing with a system is an important metric or thing to track. Or also like if it's performing certain tasks or calling out to certain tools. Adherence to policies are also things that are now like important problems that are now sort of rising up with the prominence of AI agents.
And so, in an era of rapid AI deployment, is the industry focusing enough on evaluation or is it too fixated on speed to market, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, given my role here at Kolena and how we're focused on evaluation, like I feel like the answer I should say is just do more evaluation and do it quickly. But I think this is nuanced because it depends on kind of what stage you are at with kind of working on a problem. And like we're a startup here at Kolena, and like sometimes speed is important. I really think it depends on kind of the maturity of the system, and I think early stages with iterating and playing around with the tool, like speed is still valuable, but people and then like builders need to recognize that it is sort of a tech debt that you're taking on, right? And you take on that debt because it helps you in that moment, but at the same time, you really have to get that covered. And so I do think that for AI agents specifically, the industry has sort of moved to recognize that, hey, now that I am solving problems with my tooling, I need to make sure that it works well, and I need to make sure that it works well in kind of broad situations. And so I think with a reasonable level of maturity, that evaluation is essential and critical. And I actually I do think in some ways the industry does react and adapt towards that.
How can organizations ensure ethical AI outcomes through robust evaluation, particularly in high stakes industries like healthcare or finance?
I think the way you ensure most things in an organization is by measuring and tracking it, right? And so I think it stands to be a similar process for AI, ethical AI outcomes. You have to measure it, you have to track it, and like that process starts in just like making sure you have the tools to measure and track it. So, like on your inputs, whatever your system is, you collect metadata, data, you collect anything that you can that can be relevant, and then you break down your performance by different scenarios that you define with that metadata. And then ethical outcomes, fairness, that only occurs after you sort of track like fairness across sort of different populations, different like stratifications within your target audience.
Great. And so I want to talk a little bit about key metrics for AI agent performance. So, what
Mhm.
kind of emerging metrics beyond accuracy should be part of every AI evaluation strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think I touched upon some of these at the beginning with like adherence to policy, user experience. I think they vary depending on the type of kind of agent that you're working with, whether it's a single turn or multi-turn conversational. I do think that beyond that, like correctness is also nuanced in that like accuracy can be just, hey, how many times did we get something right when we shouldn't, when we should have, or like how many times did we not do something when we shouldn't have? And I think there's also value in sort of breaking that down in terms of kind of, hey, we should make sure that we are doing good behaviors, but we should also make sure we're not doing bad behaviors.
Do you think there's a gold standard for measuring real world performances, or should evaluation methods be tailored by industry and use cases?
I see that for agents specifically, like there is a strong overlap in kind of like how you'd measure performance and like the tooling that you need. But I think ultimately like the metrics that you define do need to be driven by like industry use case. I think that in terms of process, like how you go about testing and how you like that sort of testing impacts deployment and like iteration and like that whole feedback loop of general software development, like there's a gold standard in that. And like I think the sort of DevOps type process of like shifting left is something that should be mirrored in, I guess, development of AI tools as well. But like ultimately, you have specific metrics based on your problem, and you need to be targeting those as you improve your processes.
What fundamental blind spots in current AI evaluation practices are putting businesses at risk?
Yes, there is kind of you only get as much information as you sort of collect, and so if you this goes back to like making sure that you collect metadata and like learn about problems as much as possible, because there's a lot that you discover from like going through the data and tracking through that. But I think more than that sort of blind spot, I think the current like difficulty or like the current problems that we're seeing and that we're trying to help our customers resolve is basically just taking a process that makes sense and sort of scaling that up and making it manageable, right? Like it's not so much, oh, like I don't want to like our customers come to us and it's not like they don't want to evaluate things, but it's like, hey, I've got a process that is kind of works at a human level, because ultimately like for a lot of these problems, like a human judge is sufficient or like intelligent enough to solve the problem. But like, how do you actually do that at scale? Like if you have like tons of scenarios that you really want to be taken care of, like how do you scale your evaluation process up to that?
How has rigorous AI evaluation helped companies identify and eliminate harmful biases in their models?
I think the first example that pops into my mind is one of our first customers was a sort of facial recognition type customer, and so I'm sort of steering away from the AI agents topic, but like I think this just lands, or this fits the question so well. And basically what one of the things that was critical for them was just, hey, like we have a facial recognition tool. How well does it work for different scenarios? How well does it work for people of different races, of different ages, like that sort of stuff? And like, how can we ensure that our model isn't biased one way or the other in this situation? And the process that they went through was kind of defining the metrics, defining kind of the scenarios, the test cases that they cared about, and tracking the performance over different iterations of their system.
What role should human oversight play in AI evaluation, and how can businesses balance automation with human in the loop approaches?
I think there's quite a significant sort of trade-off here, where obviously you're trading off kind of scalability with automated tools to sort of correctness and higher fidelity with human in the loop type approaches. And like there's kind of a few approaches that you can kind of take here. I mean, the I guess the low-hanging fruit is just like doing something sort of hybrid, where you use kind of automation for scale, but like you spot check with human in the loop. But I think in addition to that, there's sort of different ways that you can make human in the loop work to higher scales. So like tooling that'll let you like do labeling better and more effectively. Or on the flip side, you kind of make automation sort of higher quality.
How can companies future-proof their AI evaluation strategies to adapt to emerging models like multimodal and generative AI agents?
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes back to kind of just making sure that you have the problem well defined. You want to treat evaluation as kind of a first order objective, right? It's not something that you look at after the fact. It's something that you use to define how you build the tool. And so that goes back towards defining what are the metrics I care about, how do I properly implement them, how can I measure them and track them with the least friction possible, and like what sort of tools can I use to do that.
And
Mhm.
so, what does continuous evaluation mean in practice, and how can it drive long term business value and model performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think continuous evaluation kind of parallels like continuous integration, continuous deployment, in terms of like you want to move your processes, reduce as much friction between them as possible between like live production. Hey, I have a system implemented and I want to understand how it's performing versus how like versus kind of like having that sort of gap between collecting data and then doing that evaluation on that. Um, I would say that uh, my personal opinion is that I think that's almost a goal that you kind of tackle after some of at least getting a proper evaluation process in place. I think it's farther along the maturity scale, and it's certainly kind of an investment that you take sort of iteratively, where it's like, hey, I have no evaluation process. Okay, I have like some sort of evaluation process, and like I now have some sort of tooling to reflect on some things, and then you invest more and you say, okay, well now I have this continuous evaluation process. I have monitoring for my data in production. I am able to like automatically pull it in for like a deeper evaluation and flag and surface things that I wouldn't otherwise. Um, and like long term, like in terms of long term business value and model performance, I think that's kind of the end goal of just making sure that as soon as some sort of deviation occurs, you're able to debug, address, and like remediate it.